Happy Christmas and welcome to ClapperCast. I'm your host as always, Carson Tamar, and today we continue our annual tradition as I am joined by Paul Price and Michael Fairbanks, and we look back at the year in film that was 2023. From the highs and the lows, this is the year of Barbenheimer. This is the year of drastic change on the podcast. This is the year of the Eras Tour. There is so much to discuss this year, and we are here to talk about everything we loved and everything we hated. This is a yearly tradition. I am so excited to continue on every single year, hopefully, us three getting together and talking about the year we had. But I want to remind everyone of a couple things. Number one, film is subjective. ClapperCast holds space for people with all opinions. We are not trying to start any conversations about being right or being wrong. So if we make a joke or we say a film is bad or we say a film is good, obviously that is our opinion. And I really, if you disagree and you can't deal with a space where someone says a certain film that you like, someone else dislikes, this is probably not the place for you. And I think it's also just weird because art is subjective. That's like the beauty of it. But also, every year, obviously, we cannot see every single film. And especially this year, and I'll say it's completely my fault. We recorded this early. We recorded this December 18th, so a few days back. Even in that short amount of time, obviously there's a lot of films that either we didn't have time to screen or it wasn't necessarily made available to everyone in the group. I know like a lot of the group didn't see The Iron Claw, didn't see The Color Purple, didn't see Poor Things. Some of us didn't see. It is something that we have to deal with and we're accepting and we're moving on. So this is of course a subjective celebration of the year that we had. So if something's not here, number one, don't be offended because again, it could just be our opinion, but also know not everything was screened in time. And that's just something that, that's life, right? You can't see every single movie. So I just want to keep those notes very, on our top of our mind as we go into the episode. It's a long one, but it is also a very fun one. So with that, enjoy our 2023 year in review, and let's get right to it. And let's get started with our favorite performances of the year, starting with our positives, and then we'll get into negatives a little bit later. Michael, the king of Burbank, I'm going to start out with you. What performances this year did really stood out to you that you enjoyed?
So I'll do a weird one first that's not really in the awards race and say Dave Bautista and Knock at the Cabin. I actually just picked up that Blu-ray today, weirdly enough, at Best Buy. That performance, I think, really cemented him as a true actor. I think for a while people have been sort of like saying that with his little roles in Dune and Blade Runner, where he did a lot with little screen time. But I think in Knock at the Cabin, he was incredibly menacing, weirdly empathetic. Just such an interesting movie in general, being this guy who's like leading this cult that's just desperate to convince these people that it's the end of the world. And it could have been such a shallow character, but I thought he brought a lot to it. And every year I do like a stupid, like hypothetical Oscars just in my phone notes, just because like in Q1 and Q2, it's super funny to just like see like all these like absolute nonsense choices I have. And Batista just never left. And I really think that it's just one of the most impressive. And then number two, got to go with my main bitch, Bradley Cooper. Currently Oscar season's number one diva down after The Chair.
Not doing particularly well.
Oh, it's looking so bad. I've already fully accepted that we've lost.
Actually, you know what? To bond it to someone else's main bitch, it does feel a little bit like his previous collaborator, Lady Gaga's House of Gucci year, where it just kind of was like, oh, it's gonna be, and then it just kind of like flopped on its face.
I mean, what's interesting is that I think the movie is great, unlike House of Gucci. So I do think. Sorry,
Okay, you guys came out of my podcast, and our first question, I was like, we're starting positive, and we don't need to start by shitting on Lady Gaga. House of Gucci was great. It was A Star Is Born was great.
I
Move on.
simply don't support House of Gucci. But
Well, next year when you say Joker 2, whatever it's called, Lady Gaga best performance, we'll circle back around.
no, definitely for sure. But I do think that despite all of that, even though to me it's just funny at this point, like I can't even be invested. It's just we threw it so hard. Anyway, I do think his performance as Leonard Bernstein was really incredible, and he really just beautifully inhabited that man. And to be fair, I've never really seen footage of Leonard Bernstein besides the end of the movie. I went in pretty much knowing nothing about the man
You're like,
besides.
I never even read the book that his life
Yeah,
is based on.
I haven't. You know, one thing about me, I'll never look at the source material ever. So,
You're
you
like, I
know,
don't know why Tar didn't show up at some point. I felt like he's really important to his overall narrative.
I mean, Bradley's kind of having a Tar moment. So,
Yeah.
in that way, it came back around. But I did think he was really great, and I hope that when the movie comes out, maybe that will shift people a little bit on him, although I doubt it. And then as far as women go, Greta Lee.
If I have to find one.
No, I noticed on my list that I listed them that way, like men first. Yikes. And, and then the women, so that's how I put it, I guess. My pick for best actress would be Greta Lee in Past Lives. I thought she was fucking terrific.
Well, my God, I love that you have a lot of like very serious, fun picks. You were worried going into this. You were like, oh, but what if we haven't seen everything and it's not going to be really comprehensive? My first one is the bear from Cocaine Bear.
Nice.
A big bear. It was really cool. I like that it made a woman. Speaking of women, hashtag, female rights.
Yeah, there
Girl
you
boss.
go. Starting off with a woman.
Right. Go listen to our review of it. Me and Paul really broke down every change they made to that bear, but I love her. Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things was really fun. Dave Bautista, great. Paul Giamatti in Holdovers, fantastic. Taylor Swift, Eras Tour. I mean, the camera loves her. She's iconic. I rewatched it the other day. Now that it's on home streaming, love that bitch. Candice Bergen in Book Club, The Next Chapter. She is the funniest role of the year. I saw that film 3 times specifically for her. Whenever she's on screen, iconic behavior.
You know what?
Finally,
I will say I have not watched Book Club, but I do love Candice Bergen. And the fact that you said that makes me be like, maybe I should put it on for the holidays.
you should watch it. It's so funny. It's like really the most underrated comedy of the year.
I really liked Book Club 1. I
haven't seen it.
Followed up with 2. What? Oh,
Didn't see it. Didn't catch it, but I did see Book Club The Next Chapter twice in theaters and once at home. So,
So you just walked into Book Club 2 raw? No lore, no nothing?
Why? I figured I could keep up with it.
Right.
I walked in the Bob's Burgers movie also without watching a single episode of that show. So I just kind of raw dogged these and see what happens.
Which is so upsetting once again because the Bob's Burgers show is fun enough and that movie was horrendous. It's like it's the same as like The Simpsons, except I think the Simpsons movie was like okay.
Haven't seen that one either, can't say.
I walked out of Bob's Burgers 10 minutes in.
I was at screening. I was literally the only person at the entire press screening, and then she asked me afterwards. She was like, "Oh, so you're a big fan of the show because no one else came, so like you must really like it." And I was like, "No," and then she literally was speechless, and I walked away. So,
you're like, I watch everything.
Yeah, sorry. But my number one most important performance of the year is in fact Zendaya in the trailer for Challengers. We'll be talking about Challengers more later, but she is fantastic in that trailer.
Can you not say?
No, I can't. I can't, Paul. Well, I'm not lying. I'm not lying. She was great in the trailer. Okay, she was incredible. I'm not saying anything with knowledge of anything else. I'm just saying in the trailer she was great, and I'm excited for everyone to see that movie. So, shout out Zendaya. Paul, what performances did you like?
So this year I kind of like I haven't hit all of the like big movies in the way I used to. And that's only because a lot of big movies you end up just getting like screeners and shit, or it just exists, and you're like, okay, I'll watch it. And then if you watched it in February or something, I don't rewatch movies for the most part. So like I watched it and I'm like, I don't really remember this movie, but I know I didn't love it. And then all of a sudden we're talking about it nonstop and I have to like defend my decision for not loving it. So, with that being said, I still have a lot of movies that I think were pretty great. Um, but I'll talk about more of the like underrated and then like the one that everyone's talking about. Um, but I'll say like I really loved Matt Damon in Air. I thought he was a really good performance. Um, I think doing things like putting on the fat suit and things like that were just like very nice in a not embarrassing kind of way. It more just felt like no, I mean like I know like overall we could talk about fucking Wonka later in biggest disappointments, but like um in this it felt more like oh yeah, it makes him like because he's older, it just fit him and it fit that character to where I like believed it, even though when you look at that guy, does not look anything like Matt Damon. Really kind of loved Nicholas Hoult and Renfield. I think the movie is awful. He's really fun in it. Um, I I loved Nicholas Galitzine in Bottoms. He was good as well in Red, White, and Royal Blue, but for the most part, Bottoms. Um, the performance that I think is getting fucked over this year just because of what company released it and that the rest of the movie isn't hitting people the same is Glenn Howerton in Blackberry. I think he is so good and deserves so much more. Um, really out of left field one. I think both of the performances of the villains, Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren in Shazam: Fury of the Gods, terrible film that every second they're on screen I am having a blast because they're having a blast, and sometimes that like comes through the screen. I would put that with Nicholas Hoult actually too, where if we're talking about like movies that are just like fun for fun's sake. Let's see. Another performer who I wouldn't say like particularly in the roles that I have seen I'm like, oh, this is an amazing performance, but I'm seeing range. I'm seeing like a really good like growth that I think will translate very well into great roles eventually is Archie Madekwe from both Saltburn and Gran Turismo. Two completely different roles that were both kind of hard to do to play those specific roles, specifically like Saltburn playing the Philip Seymour Hoffman character from Talented Mr. Ripley, and then Gran Turismo kind of playing an asshole the entire film that you had to still like. I think it was a really impressive role. Outside of that, yeah, Taylor was great, but like the only role this year that I am like ride or die is Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers. Like when I think about like performances, and actually, you know, in general, all three of the leads from The Holdovers, but specifically, Divine, I know she's probably winning the Oscar, but like I'm still so impressed with some of the work that she does. My dad watched it and he was like, what's so surprising to me is, you know, you had said, oh, it's like Paul Giamatti is so great in it. And then I'm watching it and I'm like, he says, Mary, the character that she plays, is so good that every scene she's in, she just steals it. And he's like, it was so impressive to watch. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's been the thing. Also, do we have like an overall cast one? No, just acting.
Just acting.
Yeah, the cast of All of Us Strangers, a movie I think is terrible. And I really thought like some of the performances were great. Like some of the lines that they had to get through, some of the like emotional nonsense they had to portray. And I was like, no, like I'm digging this. I'm digging what you're trying to do with the roles you're stuck with. That was really impressive to me, especially Andrew Scott, especially Claire Foy, Paul Mescal can take or leave. That's the first role I've ever seen him do, so that is big for me because everyone's like, no, you'll love him eventually.
It's
Need to
because you
fucking
didn't
watch.
see After Sun.
I didn't see After Sun, and I
I
didn't
don't
see
think
The
you would have
Lost
liked
Daughter.
it.
When
No.
you watch After Sun, you're gonna call my ass
The problem
crying.
okay, here's my problem with After Sun. I hate children.
The
And you
girl's
know what?
fine in
That's
it.
also my problem with The Lost Daughter. I just didn't
You won't like
fucking
them,
care.
Paul.
When she's like, I left my daughter, I watched a little bit of it. When she's like, I left my daughter, I was like, yes, go. And she's like, it's perfect, and you're supposed to be upset about that? I'm like, no. I would.
The issue with After Sun is that Alina Fald saw it at TIFF, and this is the truth, and she said it was terrible. So then I've just been disposed to be like, it's bad. That's the truth.
Yeah,
You haven't watched it either?
No, I watched it, but it was like in the midst of I would need to
Oh.
rewatch it to have like a fully formed opinion.
Oh, okay. Random fucking one, but I think I'll keep bringing up this movie a bunch. Is Thomas Schubert in A Fire? I have it currently listed as a 4.5 star. I think it actually is a 5. Oh, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus in fucking
You Hurt My
what the hell is
Feelings.
that movie called? You Hurt My Feelings. Yeah, fantastic. So good. There's so many good performances. Like, my problem is when we talk about like great performances, we're like looking for you know, the big emotional beats. And to me, like, I love when they're the fun movies that are consistently great performances but can be muted. I think in the past few years, even though I absolutely, to death love like Jessica Chastain and Tammy Faye, it's a big performance. And I feel like sometimes the smaller performances get lost, especially with female roles. Sorry, Michael, I know I'm mentioning women. But like, you have Oppenheimer, which is Cillian Murphy, Killian, doing pretty much across the line performance, and people realize it's great. But then you can have a role like You Hurt My Feelings or something like that, or Natalie Portman, who's getting fucking demolished this year. Even though December, I think she's the strongest of the three personally. Only in the sense that the other two have like juicy work to do, and Natalie's sitting there playing what not even spoilers, you kind of guess it early on, a hack actress, terrible actress, who has taken it upon herself to go explore like deep emotional depth, and she has none. She is a puddle. And I think that that's really like, such a hard thing to do, because you have to show her acting poorly at multiple occasions. And some of those, like, when she's like trying to practice and stuff, and you're like, Natalie's not doing great. And I think people are reading it as not doing great. Wow, she's really not killing this performance. It's like, no. It's because she's playing a hack. She is playing someone who thinks that they'll win an Oscar from this terrible film.
The scene where she's talking about doing sex scenes to the high school class is just like she has so many great scenes in that movie, because that's one of my favorites too. In fact, I personally would vote for her. Out of all the like best actress choices, I think she easily blew everybody away. And I just think, like you said, it's just like how she plays with the ambiguity of just being this like hack, just being so bad at like talking about these things. Like that's what I really like love about that movie, is it really nailed how like industry people talk about like real people's trauma, and how they like twisted and reappropriated into being their like campaign speak almost. I feel like Natalie did that the best out of.
Yeah. Oh, and then you know what? One last one. I'll throw out a little to the overall cast, with the exception of Rachel, and it's not her fault. She just had to sing a lot, but like, I'll still allow her. The cast of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, a film that shouldn't work and kind of doesn't, but like I was endeared to all these characters enough to care what happened to them over the course of this overly long, boring movie. Like, you know, you're watching it and you're like, Viola Davis shows up, you're like, I'm having a great time. Peter Dinklage shows up and you're like, I'm having a great time, even though he's just doing Tyrion Lannister again. You know, Tom Blythe, a man I don't really know, don't really love, but I went and rewatched clips of Snow, you know, played by Donald Sutherland. I'm like, no, he was doing a really good impression of Donald Sutherland's character. Like, you listen to some of like the versions. Hunter Schafer, I think, is really fantastic in that. There's a there's a lot of like good ensemble performances this year, which I think are lost a lot of times. And I think it's something like my one big push, especially if we are about to move eventually within the next like 10-15 years to genderless categories, we have to start adding ensemble and comedy as roles. And also, I would say voice acting. Like, you cannot do what we're having happen a lot of these times with, you know, like Gotham Awards and stuff, where we're just like losing half the performances without any uh, recompense for like what that's going to do for people. Because I think that, you know, there's great performances all around. Another one, I'm surprised you didn't mention Carson, Haunting in Venice. Also, a lot of great small performances.
Yeah, that's true. Michael, I think you had another one you wanted to mention before we get to what our fans thought.
Yeah. Another performance I really liked and this is probably my favorite performance in a comedy this year, is Jennifer Lawrence in No Hard Feelings. Such a tough character, and that whole movie doesn't work if you hate her. Cite Licorice Pizza for a similar premise where you hate the girl the whole time. And it's just the way that Jennifer Lawrence just completely unabashedly walks that line of being so ridiculous and despicable in that role, but also you just completely sympathize with everything that she's going through with like her financial stuff and all of that. I just think she somehow turned that into an everyman role, and that's just an incredible feat of acting. And I feel like I want to see Jennifer Lawrence do more comedies. It's almost like some dramatic actors eventually really settle into comedy and like relax and find their true kind of like on-screen presence. And I felt like with Jennifer Lawrence, we really saw her like really wake up in that movie.
Yeah.
Another person who I really liked was Priya Kansara in Polite Society. I really, really enjoyed that movie, and I think it's incredibly underrated. I think it's going to be kind of a sleepover classic over the next few years in a similar vein to like Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, whatever the hell that movie's called. And I think that a lot of that is just carried through by her performance and just her energy and her spirit in that just insane role. Another person who I really like is the lead in Godzilla Minus One, uh, Rinosuke Kamiki. I thought that role is so tragic. It's almost provocative in the sense that he's this like kamikaze pilot, and he has to just grapple with so much trauma and just pain, and infusing a monster movie that people consume as just like mindless fun, and incorporating that level of pathos and drama into it. I thought that was incredibly impressive. I'm done talking about Godzilla now.
No, I'm really excited to see that. That's my that is my biggest like annoyance of this year was I wanted to see Godzilla and I had a bunch of people who I was like, no one's gonna see Godzilla. I'm gonna have to force people and I'll have tons of options. And everyone said no. You said no, Chris said no, and then Dylan said no, but they said no because they'd already seen it and didn't want to see it twice. Dylan was like full on no. And I was like, I'm sorry. You'll
Yeah,
see anything. And
Dylan's
he's like,
not
I
cool.
wanted to see Napoleon, and then he fucking hated Napoleon. So
Yeah, because Napoleon fucking sucks. We'll get to that later. Um, I have like let's see, a couple more I could mention.
Obsessed that Michael was like, "Hey, can I quickly squeeze in one more answer?" And then decided actually I have 3 categories
Well,
worth of answers to go.
well, it's
Okay,
because
you know what?
I completely fucked it up the first time. I just sorry, I needed to say that. I have
I
one more.
want to toss. I want to toss in one more, and that is the entire cast of Infinity Pool. And I'm going to talk more about Infinity Pool, but specifically Maya Goth, a woman I fucking hated, and 180'd in one movie. And the only time that that's happened was, and like for life, I will love Mia Goth. Um, Mia. The only other time that's happened was Rebecca Ferguson in Doctor
Sleep,
Sleep.
Doctor Sleep.
It's the only other time where I've been like, I fucking hate this actress, and then they play a villain in a movie, and I'm like, never mind, I get it, I understand. Okay, so and it also, I know you're cutting this all down, so I'm just giving you a bunch. Go. Who audience?
Well, Michael's not said the one he wanted to bring
Yeah,
up yet.
So I'll get to this. I'll do them quickly.
Them?
The last two I want to talk about, and these are like the genuine, like dramatic performances, are Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, brilliant, and Kaylee Spaney in Priscilla. I thought that she said so much with so little. That movie is such a delicate
No
balancing
kidding.
act. Yeah, I know Paul's not a big Priscilla fan.
So little.
Hashtag not my Elvis.
I just think that whole movie unravels if you don't have someone that like really anchors you. And I think that she, and I know those kind of performances, they either hit you or you don't. But I thought that there were just so many moments where she could have gone bigger and instead just sort of quietly conveyed the
She
pain
was
that she was
quiet.
going through. She was. But then, like,
I will
he gets to the
say
end of the movie and
that
she breaks your heart.
I think Elvis wins Best Picture in a world where Butler and Ellerty was switched, and that's my like. I don't think he wins Best Actor regardless, but I do think that they're like the performance of Ellerty. I felt like I was watching Elvis the entire time I watched Butler. I felt like I was watching someone being Elvis. Like my brain could just like completely follow that this was and I would say even a huge part of it is the fact that I know he's a blonde guy who's dyeing his hair. It just felt very like you could just tell. I think it's hair and makeup probably. That's why it didn't win. But yeah, no, that's been my one thing is like if the roles had been switched, I think that last year could have been very different.
I could see that. I could also see Austin Butler being really good in Priscilla because he has that like
put them
Agreed.
all together.
Yeah.
he has that like Brad
Shove that
Pitt.
all the way.
He has that like young Brad Pitt like intensity that I feel like would have worked.
Oh,
in
I can see
Priscilla.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I
who
think you're
are
right about that.
Well, Chris Gonzo agrees with Sandra Hüller from Anatomy of a Fall, and the good Nicolo Grosso. I'm not Peace and Love. He sent like 30 options. I'm not going to read them all. But I'll say we
Was
did
he
mention
Michael?
Margot Robbie, right? Well, yeah. Actually, this seems like a short list now. Margot Robbie from Barbie, Cillian Murphy from Oppenheimer, Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon. I agree. I think she's for me the only good part of that film, so I'll definitely throw that out there. Penelope Cruz from Ferrari.
I wanna
Go for
hop in. I wanna hop in with one Lily Gladstone thing. I think the thing that will sink her campaign, I fully believe this, was the reveal that she broke character during the part that people were responding to as one of the best moments, where she laughs at Leonardo DiCaprio's joke and saying that that wasn't scripted and it made her laugh and she broke character. I think was such a stupid choice. And when
Sure.
she doesn't win, it's going to be because of that article where they were like, oh, we should share this. Like, no, lock that down, because after that point, you're like, oh, then it's a fine performance. But for some reason, that moment was hitting everyone as like, wow, that was such a great choice. And it wasn't. That it's Thelma's. It's not yours. That she was like, oh, I'll keep in this, breaking character. It's not your acting at that point.
There's still something to
Sure.
be said for like playing it off, though. I think.
Oh no, she great, but like the laugh, the way she does it, realizing that the reason it works is because she broke character, is a hard sell to be like, that's a great character moment in terms of acting. Not in terms of movie, in terms of acting.
No, that makes
Continue.
sense.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much all his entire list. So some good stuff there. I think we can move on from performances. We listed a bunch today, so hopefully everyone was mentioned that everyone cares about.
Everyone was mentioned.
I mean, pretty much, right?
I
Moving on
promise
to
I'll be quicker.
No, you're good. Favorite screenplays. I'm gonna go quickly. The one that really stood out to me was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We're gonna be talking about it a lot on this podcast, actually, from me. Considering I really do not like Marvel, I don't even like the other Guardians films, to be honest. There was something about this one where I think it's just like perfection. I think it has everything you could want from a blockbuster film like this. I've rewatched it multiple times. Every time I'm like, oh, this is gonna be where I decide I hate it and it's not actually that good. And it just keeps getting better. Barbenheimer, I'm just going to throw both of them together. Both really fantastic. I feel like everyone has talked about those already. Poor Things, I found really excellent. The Holdovers, very charming. A new like Christmas like staple of the holiday for me. And then La Chimera, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, I think. But this is an Italian film that came out, not selected for international feature, but Neon put it out, and it's really poetic. It's funny if you're listening to the podcast and you've been listening to the podcast this year. We did like multiple episodes talking about John Couture randomly, and this film is basically like the modern like remake of his like spirit of filmmaking in a way that I found very moving. So those would be the screenplays that stuck out to me. Paul, what screenplays did you enjoy this year?
Okay, I'm gonna stick with my number one, bar none, in terms of achievement, is A Haunting in Venice, because you took a story like, and you could have problems with the overall film, but to take a story that is so bad and change the location, change the murder, change almost everything about it, but also keep enough to where if you are a purist, you're like, okay, that was good. So impressive when you look at movies that like get the purists mad, and this was like a very strong example of just like good writing. The other one that I think was pretty fantastic was Infinity Pool. I think has a really great screenplay. You Hurt My Feelings, I think, is really great. Pretty weak year.
You Hurt My
overall.
Feelings is the one where they have like a break-in at the weed store. There's like a robbery,
Yes.
right? Okay, good. That was funny. That was good.
Yeah. No, like overall though, I think it's a pretty weak year for screenplays, actually. I will put Saltburn a couple more times throughout this, but screenplay will not be one of them. American Fiction, another one that I liked overall, but will not be putting in screenplay. Priscilla won't be putting in screenplay. There's a lot of movies that I think that the problem is the screenplay. I would also put Holdovers as a great screenplay, but you mentioned it.
Wait till you see Maestro, boy. Whew, even I can admit that. Okay, so in terms of the awards movies, I think the two best screenplays are easily Oppenheimer and May December. Oppenheimer just has that relentless stream of information that is still accessible and still enjoyable to a wide audience. And I think, honestly, it's the best execution of something like that since The Social Network, besides maybe Steve Jobs. And May December, just the way it masterfully satirizes the industry and its relation to true crime and trauma. I just think it's fucking unparalleled, to be honest. Another one I really liked, and I don't even know if either of you two have heard of this movie. It's this Ray Romano film called Somewhere in Queens. And it's about a dad and a mom and a son who's a little sad. Sort of reminded me of a family that I know. And it's just like a nice elevation of Ray Romano's kind of comedic writing from his sitcom into something that's a little bit more of a dramedy. Really liked that. I think it's sort of a screenplay in the vein of like something that Paul mentioned, the You Hurt My Feelings, which I also think has a great script as well.
Paul, do you hate Ray Romano? What do you
Yeah,
have
I know
against?
he was giving me the stink eye. I
I
don't
just
think he was
never heard of
expecting
this
me to.
movie.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
quite good.
You would like it probably. And then another one I wanted to mention is Ferrari. I think Ferrari is really strong. It has some just like great character confrontations, and I think it really kind of there's a lot of movies right now that are like the breakdown of a quote unquote great figure of masculinity, and I think Ferrari approaches it in a really unique way, especially just with Michael Mann directing. And I also really liked the script for Fair Play with Alden Ehrenreich and hold on, I thought I knew her name, so let me take that again. I also really liked the script for Fair Play with Alden Ehrenreich and Phoebe. Jesus Christ, I thought I knew how I was going to read it. Let me take that one more time. I also really liked the screenplay for Fair Play with Alden Ehrenreich and Phoebe Dwayne Never. Jesus Christ. I always think I know how to read her name and then I don't. She's a great actor all the same. That really scratched a Succession itch for me that I was desperate for.
Absolutely. I'll also throw in a smaller one, Biosphere. I don't know if either of you have even heard of it, but a very unique screenplay. It goes places I don't think many would expect. I would recommend you go completely blind. And it's just a very fun time. Nicola Grasso thinks, well, we'll mention a couple smaller ones that I think only me and him have really seen. Orlando, My Political Biography, and Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. Sadly, don't know how anyone can watch these. I assume no one's heard of them. But they're both incredible screenplays. I'll agree with him. He also mentions Asteroid City, which I'm sure both of you will heavily agree with, knowing your history with that film. And then Chris Gonzo says Anatomy of a Fall, which I am more mixed on because I think if you have a film that's basing itself on like a question of who's guilty, and there's one side that like is not guilty, like very there's zero reason to think they are guilty. I think it's a little faulty, but I understand a lot of people like it, so valid.
Did you like the Ridley Scott movie? I can't remember what it's called.
Napoleon?
The
No.
Last Duel?
Yeah.
Loved it.
Okay.
But that's not
Interesting.
really
Because
but it answers the
no,
question.
see,
And like
that was my problem with the film overall, was that there is very clearly one side when they're like,
yeah.
who's the side? And you're like, obviously.
To be fair, I think the situations are like a murder is different than like the subject of that film, let's say, right? So like I think there's differences
That's fair.
at least. But yeah, valid everyone. Um so with that, if we don't have any more screenplays to mention, let's move into favorite directors. Michael, I'll throw it over to you to start. List every member of the DGA, and let's get going.
For me, the pick is Nolan for director. I think he really became a big boy on this one. I think he really elevated himself into the league of someone like a Steven Spielberg with Oppenheimer. I think in the sense it's sort of his it's not as dark necessarily, but it does deal with like genocide and stuff. Sort of his like Schindler's List in terms of I think being really legitimately accepted amongst like the deep, deep, deep film community. So I've got to say that he would be my pick for director actually if I were voting. Of course, I've got to say Bradley Cooper. I do think he really shines as a director, maybe above everything else in Maestro. You can feel that he's developing a very theatrical style and a very just kind of larger than life sensibility towards movies that I think is going to be amazing to watch. And then I would have to say Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. I have my issues with that movie, certainly, and overall I would say it's just pretty good, but I think he's becoming just this visual master of almost these like deranged historical like storybook movies almost. And Poor Things really leaned into that for me. And then the last one I would want to say is Sofia Coppola for Priscilla. I thought that she really just Her photography of the period was incredible. The way everything looked, the way those characters interacted with each other in a way that both felt um, distant and present. I thought was just brilliant. So those would be my picks for director.
I like to imagine you haven't even seen Priscilla and you're just adding that to make it seem like you don't hate women. Paul, what are your picks for best director?
So overall with best director, I try to say like movies that I think worked really well, even though the screenplays didn't. Like you can say, oh, it was a great director, and you're like, was it? Or was it just like a good screenplay? So that's always my struggle. So I'm gonna go with ones that I think the screenplay is kind of weak and I still liked the direction. My two will be Sanctuary, director being Zachary Wiggin. I think the first third of that movie is fantastic. I think the last of it is terrible, but I will also say that throughout the entire time I was interested, which is very impressive. Wonka, I think, is a terrible film. I think it was directed very, very well. And then my last one is I'm sick about it. Saltburn. Screenplay is so, but oh my god, every shot is so sumptuous. Every performance is on point. It is a perfect film. You know what? We were talking about performances. How I didn't mention any of the cast except for Archie, saying that he could have done better. like they all fucking killed. Like I really think that, you know, directing has gotten to where it's like got to be a package deal with picture. I don't like that, because sometimes great directing is a not great movie. Eileen, actually, another film that I think that the screenplay has just oodles and oodles of issues, is pretty interesting. Counterpoint, American Fiction, a movie that I overall liked, I think it's terrible direction. Um, Legitimately terrible. The Holdovers, the way Alexander Payne is able to evoke the 70s is so fantastic. You watch it and you're like, this is the 70s. Really good. But let me see if there's any others that I'm like missing in terms of. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do a splitsies. I think that Asteroid City is fucking atrocious. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. But his little shorts, pretty good. Very much enjoyed his little shorts. Good work, Wes. Stick with those. Adapting Wes is the best Wes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
you're not wrong there.
I would agree with that.
Even as someone who likes Asteroid City quite a bit, I mean, I can't argue that. I'm not going to mention the ones that you've already mentioned. I'll just throw out Greta Gerwig for Barbie. Incredible. Someone who really impressed me, Michael B. Jordan, directorial debut for Creed 3. I thought he brought such a strong and confident hand with like a vision to that film. And then the final one I'll mention is Sean Durkin. I don't believe either of you have seen this yet, but for the Iron Claw, I was a big fan of The Nest, and I think he is fucking phenomenal directing the Iron Claw. A film I'm not going to mention a ton on here because I know not a lot of people have seen it, but like I think that movie is phenomenal. I think it's his magnum opus. Can't wait for everyone to watch it.
Me too.
Alina Falls is definitely going to love it at least, so good for her.
I don't know. Okay, so the new thing, side note, I'm hearing a lot of wrestling, like big wrestling fans don't like it. So I'm very curious. I've seen
but I don't think Alina Falls, like I just feel like she's gonna see like a shirtless Zac Efron and be like, this is cool.
Yeah, but he has that face.
Oh man. Well,
it's not like she really holds that many standards for faces.
Oh, one more before we move on. The director of Rye Lane,
yes.
Rain Alan Miller. I hate that movie. I was so fucking bored. But did I like the direction? Yes. I thought the directing was really good because the performances really worked in a film that doesn't. And I can't be like, just because I overall didn't like the film at all. Oh my God. Sorry. And also John Wick 4, another film that I think the script is terrible and the directing. I was like, no, that came out this year. Yeah. This was a lot of, this was the year of, I don't think the script is good. Is overall my, like, if someone was like, what will you remember of 2023? I'll be like, all the scripts were not great. I don't think, outside of my like personal interest films, I don't think really any script is like going to into the upper echelons of great scripts. Like, this is the year you want to win best screenplay, you're good to go. Like,
Well, you haven't seen Migration yet, so don't count out Mike White yet. Okay.
that's true.
We mentioned actually shockingly most of Nick's. I can't believe he left off the John Wick Chapter 4 director, but I will mention Shinya Tsukamoto for Shadow of Fire. I'd never heard of the film, but apparently good direction. And Robbie Banfitch for The Outwaters, which is like such a Niccolo Grosso film. It's not even funny.
My favorite thing about Nick was we did this a couple years back, or maybe even just last year, and he kept mentioning I forgot what the full film title is, but it was loony porn. Something with loony porn at the end.
Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn
Yeah.
or something like that.
But he kept mentioning it. We'd be like, we don't know what that is. And he'd be like, and best performance is Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn. Cool. I'm so happy for you. You can leave.
I'm convinced he just makes them up. Yeah, no, I'm definitely leaving him in. I'm convinced he sometimes he just makes up these ones.
Screamed.
And they're always the worst movie. Peace and
Yeah.
love, Nick. I tell him this to his face. They're always the worst movies ever made. Let's go to biggest positive surprises. A film that you expected to hate that you actually really enjoyed. I will go first because I have a few. Again, Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel's sucked recently, and this was so good. Elemental. Paul, I do not want to hear your thoughts on this. Shut up already. But I went in expecting this to be terrible, and I cried, loved it. It was one of my favorite Disney films in like years. Robot Dreams and Humanist Vampire Seeking, whatever the whole title is. Both of those, just I didn't expect anything from it. I was just watching randomly links that were sent to me, and they were both like fucking incredible films. So those would be my picks. Paul, what other films did you expect to not like that you enjoyed?
I'm gonna go with Air. I thought was really great. Operation Fortune, something.
Rouge de Jour.
Yeah, really fun. Infinity Pool, movie I did not think I was going to like whatsoever. And then I had like my big one. 1 second. Oh, another one. It's also going to show up in my most disappointing, so just be ready for that. But the Ninja Turtles is definitely is in both.
No, it was your most anticipated film of last year. Or like last year when we did this episode.
No, I was anticipating because I wanted to love it. Okay. And then, you know what? Okay, wait. 1 second. Cut this. Because I had one that it was like a good one. Oh, fucking duh. My last two are Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie, because I expected that like it was a one-off fluke that we would have enjoyed a Paw Patrol movie. But my big one, and this is just, more me, Oppenheimer. I was really expecting to hate Oppenheimer. And we can retroactively be like, no one hated it. Yeah, we didn't know. We'd heard that like film bros liked it, and that doesn't mean jack shit. So I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is so good. That was a real shock to me.
I need to be so honest about Paw Patrol, and I need everyone at home specifically to remember ClapperCast is a safe space for everyone with differing opinions, so I don't want to hear any bullying about this. I was doing my personal lineups today for all the different categories, like just what I liked. Animated feature, Paw Patrol did make it in. Spider-Verse did not, so I think that kind of reflects
That
my
is
opinions of the
legitimate
year.
and fair, and also correct.
No lies detected. I think that we all would agree. Well, I assume, Michael, if you saw Paw Patrol, you would love it. That's my truth.
It's
But,
so fun. The problem with those movies is the show is not like that, and the movies are. So you're just like,
Yeah.
if you've watched an episode, you're like, okay, I get it. It's for kids. It's like, no. These are good. These are fun movies.
they're legitimately like great.
Yeah.
Michael.
Next
I
time you
can't
get a
believe you
little
haven't
high,
seen
Michael, and you're like, what should I watch? It's Paw Patrol.
So
them.
like,
You show us the
put
Paw
on
Patrol
Paw Patrol.
party.
so in like an hour.
What a double
Do it
feature
right
to end the
now.
year.
Do it
Oh my
right
god.
now.
Michael, what are your biggest surprises of the year?
So I've got 3. The first is Theater Camp. When I heard about that
Fair.
movie at Sundance, I was like, this is going to be the most fucking insufferable movie that only the most annoying people I know are obsessed with. And they're going to quote one part on TikTok 500 times. And it's not going to be funny in the slightest. And fucking Ben Platt's there. Absolutely not. And then I saw it, and it is still in my top 10. Hysterical movie. Ben Platt redemption arc like you wouldn't believe. Just a brilliant ensemble. The way it was done, just with the mostly improv style and the kind of handheld kind of workplace comedy TV tropes in a film, I just thought it was brilliant. And as someone who went to theater camp, some war flashbacks there as well. Speaking of theater camp, my second pick is Dungeons and Dragons. Another movie that I thought just looked terrible. It looked like a Marvel knockoff, just like really forced, just really bad. And then you see the movie and it's just wildly inventive and very funny, and it's the same guys who made Game Night. So it's just kind of the same really solid like genre action comedy chops. And then it had a Bradley Cooper cameo that gave me the feeling that people had in No Way Home when Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed up. I think I actually shouted when that happened in the middle of the theater. What were you going to say, Paul?
I was going to say, you know what? I think my MVP this year, once you mentioned D&D, I think my MVP actor is fucking Hugh Grant.
Well,
Like, I just went through and I'm like, Operation Fortune, D&D, and he fucking was the only part of that movie that brought me a semblance of joy. I think he's my actor of the year. I was really expecting it to be Nicholas Galitzine, but I needed one more. Sorry, Hugh had 3 fucking roles, but he nailed 2 of those. And then one, he was flailing while they put him through hell, but he did a good job. When he showed up, I was like, I'm having fun.
Sometimes when you don't podcast with Paul for a while, it's like the first time you do a shot of tequila after a while, and it's like, ooh, takes a second to get used to again.
You didn't like him in D&D?
Oh, no, I liked him in Fine in D&D. I liked everything in D&D. I thought it was a great movie.
Operation Fortune? He's fun in Operation
yeah,
Fortune.
he's fantastic at that. Yeah, no, I agree. Wonka's
then-
the one that I don't agree with.
Well, but see, like he's the only one who knows what movie he's in, which is a bitter, cynical movie. And he plays him and Olivia Colman. You know what? That's another one of my actors that I would have put in. Olivia Colman trying her best to like. She was like, I was supposed to be in Paddington 3, and this happened.
I did not expect when I woke up today that you'd have multiple best actors be from Wonka, but here we are. You know, valid. Love it.
Well, I'm trying to not just because ultimately I think this year is a real struggle for me. In previous years, I can spread the love. So many movies, and I think this is important to mention. So many movies as we move into bad are. There are so many bad movies this year, and not like, oh, it's not great. It's like just not interesting. Like I don't have any connection. I don't fucking care. So like I am pulling from things that's like, this sucked, but this element was good. That's what this year is for me.
Of course. Very valid. Michael, did you have another one, or did you list all three?
I did have another.
Go for it.
The third one is Thanksgiving. A movie that I was looking forward to in a morbidly curious way, but I truthfully thought it was going to be nothing more than just a long "ain't it cool news" message boards joke. And I thought that Eli Roth actually made a real slasher movie. Like, he made something that was really reminiscent of something like the original My Bloody Valentine. And I really enjoyed that. I thought he did a great job with that movie. Don't care for him as a person, nor do I care for the studio that released Thanksgiving, but we will not get into that today.
Yeah,
Sure.
I
should
find him
say I'll leave it at that.
I find him very pretty. That's my
Eli Roth.
He's so hot to me.
No, I see it. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Carson, do you not know what Eli Roth looks like?
He is
so
kind
my
of
type.
Google Inglorious
see
Bastards.
it.
No, Carson.
I
Google
see it.
Yeah, he's
Inglorious Bastards.
he's the
right?
bear Jew from
He's a bear Jew.
Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah. No, he is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay. Sure.
It's
You
the
know,
eyebrows. Like, it's very unfortunate for me.
You love a strong eyebrow.
Because I like when he was like doing Hostel, I was like, fuck him, who's this guy? And I was like, oh, never mind. Not gonna talk too poorly. Are we on to biggest disappointments?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Well,
we're not, because we want to hear what our friends at home thought. Chris Gonzo said Godzilla -1, which valid. I think that probably means that you didn't watch the other recent Japanese ones, but like valid. And then Nicolo Grosso picked, if I can find his, Dungeons and Dragons and Evil Dead Rise. Pretty good options, I would say. Well, I didn't like Evil Dead Rise, but Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, I thought I was going to hate that too. And then I watched it and I loved it. And here we are. Taking a break from the episode, I want to tell you guys about a great sponsor we have for today's episode, and that is Zencastr. Now, look, we've been recording podcasts for a long time here on ClapperCast, and in that time, we have used multiple platforms to record and edit our episodes, but since going to Zencastr, we haven't looked back. Zencastr is an incredibly easy and free to use platform where you can record both audio and visual for your podcast. No more downloading apps or struggling to connect with guests. Instead, you can share a link to literally anyone and have them join through their browser for an episode to make your podcast streams a reality. Not only can you record with studio quality visual and audio, but you can also edit in a breeze. We love using Zencastr, and if you want to use Zencastr yourself, let me tell you about a pretty good deal. While yes, you can use Zencastr for free, there are also some great tools with a paid plan. If you want to go ahead and get yourself a paid plan to make your podcast dreams a reality, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code ClapperCast, and you will get 30% off your first month of any Zencast paid plan. Again, let me tell you, I have been through the market. I have seen the different sites. I've seen the different apps. I've seen what everyone is using, and nobody is doing it like Zencastr. We love you here on the podcast, Zencastr. We wouldn't be what we are without you, and we would love to see all of our listeners go use Zencastr. Remember, code ClapperCast at zencastr.com/pricing to get 30% off your first month of any Zencast paid plan. With that, let's go back to the episode. Let's finish our positive section today by talking about our favorite films of the year. The last time on this podcast, I think we're going to be super positive. Michael, what films would you say are at the very top for you when you look back at this year? You're going to say those are the ones I stan.
My top 5 for this year from 5 to 1 are Priscilla, Past Lives, Guardians 3, actually. I agree with everything you said and then some. May, December, and Oppenheimer. And I think I've talked my ass off about every single one of those, so I'll leave it at that.
I will go ahead, Paul.
No, do it.
You go for it. Okay, I'll go quickly. The Stroll is a documentary I love, talking about the sex workers of New York's meatpacking district. I loved it, especially as a queer person who teaches queer history. Very impactful. Poor Things was great. Holdovers were great. Didn't mention yet. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I loved that film. I thought it was so good. The Iron Claw was great. Haunting in Venice, Elemental, Barbenheimer, and my favorite film of the year, it is Guardians 3. I don't know. I can't comprehend that fully, that forever I'm going to say that a Marvel film was my favorite of the year. But here we are. We
On the
live.
last year that Marvel exists.
Oh, hopefully. Hopefully it's dead. Yeah, so those are my favorites. Paul, what are your favorite films of the year?
All right. So,
Wonka.
no,
Right.
number 10
Oh.
is sorry, I'm doing top 10. 10 is Blackberry. 9 is Saltburn. 8 is Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie. 7 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I don't know if that's true. I need to watch it again, but I do stick with that. It also will end up in my biggest disappointments. We'll talk about it. 6 is Oppenheimer. 5 is A Haunting in Venice. 4 is A Fire. 3 is Infinity Pool. 2 is The Holdovers. Number 1 is You Hurt My Feelings, but this is all a lie, because if I'm talking about my favorite cinematic experience of 2023, it is the Eras tour. Like the going to the movie after having seen it and being like, "Oh, I know what it's going to be like. It's going to be fun," and still having a religious experience during it is the most impressive thing that's happened to me. But if we're cutting that out, if we're not treating, Taylor Swift Person of the Year as, a real person, then I will say You Hurt My Feelings. But also I would feel bad because I don't want to cut Blackberry out, because I do think that Blackberry is really fantastic. Also, though I hate Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it still is my number 11. So do with that what you will.
I have two things to respond with. Number one, if you have your full list of the year, where's Ghosted on your list? What number? Just I need a number.
I'll give you mine.
16.
I have it at
Okay. Actually, lower than I thought it would be.
I have it at number 111.
Helen.
No, Ghosted. Here's the thing, Ghosted and that.
Well, you had a great time. You had a great time watching Ghosted.
Here's the
It's
thing.
valid. I wasn't
Right.
I wasn't trying to judge.
No.
I was just curious.
I feel like we're a little too bitchy about a lot of movies that are just dumb fun. And I overall just feel like people need to lighten up, because, and we'll talk about it when I get to biggest disappointments, when culture at large decides that movie doesn't have to necessarily be good but can be fun, that's okay. But when I'm like, hey, this movie was fun but kind of dumb, everyone's like, no. And Being the Ricardos was the moment I noticed this, where I was like, you pointed out 4 other movies that you're like, this one's great, but you just have to have a good time. I'm like, yeah, but that was my Being the Ricardos for me. Why are you so mean? And it's this hive mind situation. Anyway, I will stick with Ghosted being in the top 20.
Sure.
I had a great
Oh,
time.
I've spent 4 years on this podcast on the front lines defending cats. I get what you're saying here. I think we're on the same page. I will quickly say with Eras Tour, I wasn't going to go to the movie, and then you were like, you have to go, and you kept pestering me, and finally I went, and I literally cried during the Fearless part. I had a reaction to that film that I never expected. And again, went to this concert, had a great time in the concert, transcendent experience, and I was like, oh, I know exactly the same experience, and it just hit me in such this deep and moving, profound way that's I only get from Paul Schrader films, not to trigger anyone on the podcast, but it really was a moving experience. I fully agree. If you didn't go see that in theaters, I'm so sorry, because you missed out. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, it really was a moment.
Well, and I have
an era.
I have some fun tea, actually, because my 2 main questions were, why did she not do surprise songs in the movies like fucking Clue? And then why, after 2 to 3 weeks, did she not do fucking Sing Along? Apparently, it's because Team Swift, not her, but her family, was like, no, we don't want to like incentivize people to spend more money than they have. I know.
That's a
But you've
first.
got to remember that UMG is not Taylor. They're two different people. So like UMG,
Taylor will take the money. Taylor will put out the 12 versions of the album.
No, but that's the thing. Yeah, UMG is the one who's doing all the stuff that we're like, oh my god. But like, apparently, that's what I've heard from multiple sources. Is that she like, you know, they were like, no, we don't need to do all that. Like, it just should be the movie. That's also why apparently they're at the end on this, is to make them like incentivized, but not like integral to your experience, because they're not being added back into the movie. It's a whole thing. But anyway, I found that very interesting because everyone thinks of them as like the most money grabbing people, and it's like, no, they were trying to do some cool things. But I've heard from multiple sources. This is not like a one-off. Like I know somebody. Yeah. It's like I know multiple people involved.
Honestly,
we can't all buy all eight versions of the 1989 Taylor's version album. So like,
oh no, I have them all. Yeah,
yeah. I'm saying though, we can't all be like you. So like, I guess it's good that they have this mindset.
I was supposed to gift them out, but no one would tell me which one they wanted, and I didn't want to like get someone stuck with one that they were like, oh.
Well, you never asked me, so.
Well, because you already had one, don't you?
And I don't have one.
You also don't have a vinyl record player, though.
Yes, I do.
Oh, I thought you didn't.
Also, I forgot my Taylor Swift popcorn bucket at your house.
Oh no,
that's okay. I was very upset.
It's okay. Get it for the next party.
Yeah. Did we all answer? Michael, did you answer?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Favorite films of the year. Let's see what our friend said. Chris Gonzo said Guardians 3 with 2 crying emojis. Hey, I love that there's more of us. And then favorite films from Nicolo Grosso include John Wick 4, Past Lives, Poor Things, and Oppenheimer. I think we've discussed them all. Pretty good films. Now let's move to our negative portion of the podcast. What ClapperCast loves and does better than anyone else is just shitting on people. We're starting with biggest disappointment of the year. Paul, you're excited. Go for it.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to talk about movies. I'm going to talk about decisions in movies, which I feel like is a different thing. One of my biggest disappointments is that Lila is dead in the Guardians world. And I understand for the film, whatever, I don't give a fuck. But Lila is a character that, even though she's dead sometimes and isn't dead other times, is a character that I feel like really is great for Rocket to be able to grow and eventually have a fine life. And I feel like by killing her, it's very viscerally, you will never be happy, even though you're like doing the Guardians. It was always your story. No, I feel like he never is getting a true happy ending that everyone else was kind of allowed outside of our universe's Gamora. Kind of bugged me. The other one is the voice actor for Michelangelo in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. I understand.
Let's keep in mind, I believe you're bullying a literal child, but please keep going.
No, here's the problem. I think they cast him as a child, and this is overall my problem with a lot of things. Don't cast children. Cast a little bit older, and then you're fine. I would bet money they cast this kid and his voice dropped. Because Michelangelo is not a fucking deep-voiced, like, that's not his personality. So I'm sitting there, and, they're changing up the everything. Totally fine. Don't care. Whole universe is fucked on its ass. But, like, I'm fine with that. Then Michelangelo talks, and it is like nails on a chalkboard to me every time that fucking kid talked. Because all of a sudden, it's like, no, you're the, like, sweet, nice one. And if I was the director, day one of record, hey, actually, we're swapping you. Donatello, you're going to be Michelangelo, you're Donatello. Everything be fine.
Oh, you're
It would all
right.
be okay. But because they
Wait a
didn't,
minute. Oh,
yeah,
I hear.
no, because
I wasn't really going along with it, but then you said that, and I'm like, now I. Oh, wait a minute.
because it's so wrong. It's so wrong. Like every line read is just like he's almost Raph, but I loved the voice actor for Raph, so I'm not gonna like mess with him. But like, no, this is not. It's not it's not Michelangelo at all. To the point where like, Io being April, I had no problems with. This was just like wrong to me. Um, let's see. Biggest disappointments outside of that, Scream 6, I think is um, a movie that I think, and now that we've seen also what's going on outside of Scream without getting into all of it, I do think that they just sit there with a dartboard and just throw darts and are like, it's a family member of, oh, that character. And you're like, I guess, what am I doing here? And then let's see. Oh, Saltburn, obviously. But I'm gonna go with one we haven't really discussed yet. Super Mario.
I thought you liked
Because I
Mario.
think I thought it was fine. And that's my problem. I think it really could have been one of my like big movies of the year. And I was just like, okay, sure. Like it's very much, and I understand why it made $1 billion. Is very much just a movie that existed. Same with, unfortunately, sorry, Barbie. I think another movie that I just there's so much that's working. Movies that mostly work for me are my like kryptonite. I fucking can't handle them because when they mostly work, I'm like, I want to be in the room and be like, this scene doesn't work. This line doesn't work. This character development doesn't work. And then you can fix it. When it's a disaster, I'm like, it's fine, whatever. It's a disaster. I feel like there's so many problems with Barbie that like pop up occasionally, and I just see it like, someone will say it, and everyone's like, we loved Barbie, but that's one of my disappointments. What about you, Carson?
Yeah, I have a lot of them. I mean, again, like as you kind of mentioned, this was a rough year for film, really. Sanctuary had a killer trailer, really hated the movie. Super Mario Bros. Exactly your thoughts. I thought it looked incredible, and then it was just terrible. Though I also double featured it with a film I can't legally talk about, which I obviously liked more. Killers of the Flower Moon. 3.5 hours. I expected a lot from Scorsese. Loved The Irishman. Had so many problems with that film. Go check out our full review. Saltburn. Fully agree. Landscape with Invisible Hands. I'm a big Corey Finley fan. That didn't do much for me. Magic Mike 3. I'm so sorry, Michael. I really hate to do this to you. We did a whole review, but really good dance scenes, but I think such a terrible screenplay. It was really bad.
I mean, I liked it, but
Guys,
it was beautiful gowns.
well,
I was
he hot.
definitely disappointed, like disappointed compared to Double XL.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, I liked
coming off
it,
that
but,
exactly.
yeah, but I liked it.
I'm the only one in the world to be excited for this film, so I'm the only one it can be a disappointment for. Vacation Friends 2. I thought if you go back in the archives, I loved the first Vacation Friends. I thought it was really fun. This one was like torture to get through. Wonka was bad. I'm someone out of everyone who should be liking Wonka. I didn't like it. That's an issue. And then finally, All of Us Strangers. Paul even saw this film like a month ahead of me and hated it. And I was like, oh, you're wrong. Like, I'm going to love this film. And I sat down to watch it, and it was like, awful. I mean, truly, what an awful like concept, screenplay, everything. Like as a queer person, it's giving like this year's Power of the Dog, where I'm like, oh, this is not how I think the gays should be on screen, but valid, everyone. Michael, what are your disappointments of the year?
So I've got a few. Is Paul coming back?
We can hope not, but I assume so.
Okay.
Oh, wait, before Michael pops in, a random movie that I was gutted was terrible is this horror film called Swallowed, which was
Wait, weren't you like it's good? It's been on my watch list this entire year because of you.
no 2.5 star. I said you
Oh.
should probably watch it. It's not good. I know I said that.
Is it hot?
No, but it's
Ugh.
fun, and it's like Jenna Malone's having a great time. It's just this movie that you know how you have those movies that you like hear about and you're like, no one's gonna like this, but it's gonna be good, and I'm gonna be the one to be able to tell everyone it was that movie, and it not to the point that I'm kind of probably should have saved it for worst of the year, but continue, Michael.
Such venom. Speaking of venom, so my personal biggest disappointment of the year is Across the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse.
Fair.
Into the Spider-Verse was my favorite movie of 2018. It moved me in ways I can't describe. As a Spider-Man fan, I just thought it was a spiritual experience. Across the Spider-Verse, in my opinion, story-wise, like when Paul was talking earlier about movies that like almost work, Across the Spider-Verse is just so frustrating to me because it has all the elements of like that great sequel that just like dramatically improves on the first. Visually, it's all there. That script is awful. And I truly am so furious that they took the movie that was the most distinctly about how um, these characters are unique and how these characters exist within a comic book world that is separate and different from the live action superhero movies that we've gotten, and they took it and turned it into this like meta diatribe about how it's all connected to the other Marvel movies, and the whole plot has to revolve around canon events, wink. And it's just like a nonstop like stream of just like comic book nerd pandering, but not even like to people who like comic books. It's like pandering to people who comic book movie nerds. And it's like so many like I've also been such a big fan of Phil Lord and Chris Miller and how they've gone about their meta humor in the past. But in this, it just completely caved in on itself in this just nonstop, relentless stream of like, we think we're being so fucking clever by bringing this up, and all you're doing is devaluing the characters, and all you're doing is taking away from everything that was good about that other movie. I feel like I lost Miles in his own movie. It's just the more distance I get from that movie, the more I just think it's wretched, to be honest.
I mean,
But
I agree. I didn't put it on my biggest disappointments because I would say that overall Into the Spider-Verse kind of curdled for me. In that I was like, oh, I had a great time. And then people tried to make it bigger than it was, which is a lot of my problems with movies, is where it's like, I've said this before with me talking about movies I enjoy and people don't, but like sometimes a movie can just be fun. Leave it alone. Like I cannot imagine watching the original Spider-Man 2 with film Twitter. Like everyone talking about like, oh my god, can you believe Alfred Molina didn't get an Oscar? Not fuck off. Shut up. I don't care. Like it's so. But anyway, um, my overall problem with that movie, and this is just very quick aside, and why I also would agree that it's a disappointment, but I knew you would bring it up, is the movie sets up such strict logic that if you are a fan and you will follow the logic, makes no goddamn sense. And I can point to one very specific thing that kind of unravels the whole thing. There's a shot where the Spider-Man of the PS5 game shows up. But the Spider-Man of the PS5 game has a Miles. And they're acting like Miles doesn't exist in this universe. He's not like a Spider-Man. And that there's not multiple Spider-Men in each universe. But there is. And this is clearly a Spider-Man. And also in the game, if you do some things, they very clearly show that the Spider-Man game we're playing, Spider-Man 2, PS5, is set between Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. So there is a Miles. So if someone was like, who the fuck is Miles? They'd be like, oh, I have one, and the main comics would have one. There are multiple Miles Moraleses who are Spider-Man around the universe. And it's like one of those things that's just like, stop setting up so many rules if you're not going to like set up something. Because originally I thought it was going to be that this was a prequel to everything. But it clearly can't be. Like prequel to all of Spider-Man lore. And that, oh, when Miles fixes this in the next movie, it would like unravel and suddenly Miles are thrown across the, the Spider-Verse. And now every Peter has a Miles, is what I thought was coming. It's not. That's not what they're doing.
I mean, what good would a superhero movie be if it's not a walking, honest trailer for itself?
No,
That's
and
all.
I agree.
That's all they
like,
fucking care about
when
now.
this
It's just
movie
like
is trying to
it's
be
just like
so. I agree, but when this movie's trying to be so clever, be clever.
that's what I'm saying.
Be
Yeah,
smart.
right.
Like,
But it's enough to just say tropes and
yeah,
superhero
and
can't
that's
just go,
my problem.
"Arr,
It can't-
arr."
But I mean, I did love Canon Event. I think, to me, that is something that, even though I don't love it in terms of the movie, I do love how it interacted with the culture. I found that very fun. Same with girls saying hi, Barbie. Like, I think that some of that's really beautiful and like really fun. But outside of that,
Okay, and then I had a few more. I go through phases where I either really like or hate every horror movie that comes out this year. And this was just a year where I couldn't stand the vast majority of the horror movies. Talk to Me was a total dud. Megan did nothing for me. Totally killer. Disney Channel original movies are rated R now. What the fuck was that? And then just as a human being, I'm going to say Ari Aster was my biggest disappointment. And how fitting that his Beau is Afraid was once called Disappointment Boulevard, because that's exactly what that movie was. And I think that between that and Dream Scenario, which he only produced, to be fair, I think he's showing himself to be an utter hack. I think he has nothing to offer. And I really only liked Hereditary, and I was socially pressured into liking Midsummer later on. But his movies are long, they have nothing to say, and they're just pretty, and they have spooky parts, and that's why people like them. And I'll get into Beau is Afraid more during annoying performances, because that's really where I think Beau is Afraid's legs really fall off. But I will say that just in general, not too hot on Ari Aster going forward. In fact, I would say I am actively dreading whatever confection he has for us next. And I think he's the most overrated director of his generation.
Damn. Okay. I don't think he's gonna be sending you a Christmas card this year. I'll have more to say about that film in a minute, but I'll say first, just like it's not even pretty is the issue with this one, right? Like not even as pretty as the other ones. That's a really good pick. Talking about what our friends picked. Biggest disappointment for Chris Gonzo. Chris didn't have one. Chris knew exactly what he was getting out of every film, I guess. And then, oh god, Nick sent Indiana Jones, the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I didn't expect it to be good, but like I see how I get the vision, I see it. Last Voyage of the Dementor, Infinity Pool, Ferrari, and Demeter. Okay, shit film. This the new name for it. I think those are all. Well, sorry for about Infinity Pool, I guess out there for Paul, but other than that, I think pretty
you
good
didn't
list.
like Infinity Pool.
He said biggest disappointment, but he also said about Ferrari, and I know he doesn't hate Ferrari, so I don't know. I don't know. He's not here to defend himself. But to be fair, he's wrong about most films, to be honest. So, I mean, it doesn't say much. Let's talk about least favorite films now. The absolute bottom of the barrel. For me, these are all films. I have 4. They're all worthless. They're all terrible. They actively pain me to sit there and watch them. First, we have Paint, the Owen Wilson. It's not Bob Ross, but he's parodying Bob Ross, kind of. Like, imagine if Bob Ross was just like a sex addict. Not good. Very bad, actually. Exorcist
Which is so
Believer is
weird.
terrible.
I didn't see it, but like, it's so weird to do that after revealing that he like got fucked over by his
yeah,
like management team, like such a weird choice to be like, yeah, that's what we're going with.
I would say picking anyone who seems to be like a good person and then creating like a very clear, direct parody of them where they're just the worst person alive is a weird choice. Um, Exorcist Believer is terrible. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. I'm like so sad because I thought it was going to be good, but like literally walked out of it. It was awful. But my least favorite film of the year. There's no other film that has caused me this much pain to think about. There's no other film I think I've ever seen that I would choose to rewatch like less than this one. I would never watch this film again for any reason, and that is Beau is Afraid. What the fuck was this film? Truly 3 hours. And everyone's like, I get the sentiment from people that are like, oh, it sucks that studios put limitations on people. Some people need limitations. This film not only was like painful, it made me retroactively dislike his other films because it exposed like exactly how terrible he is as a writer with his gimmicks in film, with his gimmicks of like building emotion and thesis and moments of like, go for it, Paul.
Oh, I was gonna say I have yet to watch Beau is Afraid, but I feel like this generation of director writers, there are very few great directors who are also writers. And I feel like all of them, this new class, need to get spanked and realize, like, no, you are great at what you do. Stop trying to write your own story. Like,
sure.
I feel like Ryan...
Insert the spanking scene of Killers of the Flower Moon, but with Ari Aster.
No. But like, Ari Aster, Ryan Johnson, I think has one film. His next film will be the exact same thing, and people will go, "Wait, is that his gimmick?" He's done 4, where the gimmick is, oh, the guy you thought it was is actually it was them, the person who seems the most obvious. 4 times.
Everyone go check out our Knives Out 2 review. We're on our 1 year anniversary of it.
Yeah,
no, Christmas
but like,
last year.
Wes Anderson, and then Emerald Fennell. Like, we're hitting this whole class of people who don't realize you don't have to write your own shit. Alfred Hitchcock is known for being a great director. Steven Spielberg is known for being a great director because they like didn't write their own thing. They like had a vibe. They even picked out the story usually and let someone else write it. And then they put it screen and changed what they needed to. That's what you should do. You're a great director. Stop writing your fucking screenplays. I'm so tired of it because you're like, you don't know what you're doing. Screenplay, and it's, not to become like a rah writer guy, but like, writers know what they're doing, and they are not going to say, oh, I can direct. They would never be like, I know what that is going on. Mike White, that's the only person right now that I would say can write and direct. Outside of that, don't fucking touch it. And we'll see how White Lotus season 3 goes. And maybe I'll eat my, eat crow. But like, overall, I'm just very frustrated with this, like, the Ari Aster thing. It's like another person who just thinks that they can do everything, and you don't have to, and why?
But you don't understand how bad this one is. I mean, the first hour is like incredibly problematic with how it displays like unhoused people and like the situation. And like, it's crazy that no one mentions the role of cops in the beginning, like act of this film. It's insane how it's used. And then it just like gets so deep into thinking it's doing something incredible. I also don't like Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know if that's the performance you're going to bring up, Michael. We'll get there. I am so over him in general. Sorry. Maybe Michael, we talked about this. That's why I'm like, okay, we're on the same wavelength. We had this conversation. Got it.
We did.
Yeah, I just hate this. We'll save that for that. But Beau's Afraid sucks. It's truly like painful. It's like the biggest ick a film has given me in years.
My favorite was that, like, when I reviewed it, I got a lot of comments that were just like, you just didn't get it. Get what? His dad was a cock. That's the whole fucking movie. Like, oh, he fucked his mom real good, that big cock man. that made this little cock boy. Fuck off.
Yeah. everyone looks at Golden Globes and thinks like Timothée Chalamet getting nominated is the embarrassing one. The most embarrassing one is Joaquin Phoenix for
Yes,
Best Actor.
definitely.
It's shocking. Yeah, terrible. What are your guys' least favorite films of the year? Michael, go for it.
Okay, so the 4 that I'm going to say. Expendables 4. Can't say that I went in with super high expectations, but if Jason Statham is in the movie, I will see it because that is my husband. We have been married many years. And I will go to whatever stupid
Wild
shit,
choice
whatever
for a
stupid shit he
actor you're
brings.
gonna ride or die.
I will be there, and a couple of the Expendables films I would say were fun, 1 and 2. This one, wretched craft. Like the best part of the Expendables movies were that the action sequences were good, and this one was like thrown together in After Effects in a way you wouldn't fucking believe. Um, Continuing with the Joaquin Phoenix thing, even worse than Beau is Afraid, I thought was Napoleon. The thought of watching a 4-hour cut of that movie makes me want to put a drill in my brain. Although as I understand it, the 4-hour cut includes all of Vanessa Kirby's material. So, Ridley, maybe if you had like put a little bit of that into the cut that's a normal length, it might not be a total incoherent mess. Speaking of incoherent mess, Asteroid City. I've had so many film Twitter people try to explain what the fuck that movie means. And every one is just a very wordy version of it's about creating art in a hard time. And I'm just sitting here watching this dull, just vacant film. And you've got this eclectic cast of just some of the best in the business. And they're all just sitting there staring at each other, talking like this. The house is falling over. The kids are outside. Like it's a fucking insufferable. Fucking insufferable. And like with Ari Aster, and like Paul was saying about Wes Anderson, I do think like sometimes he is a great writer. What's that movie? Grand Budapest Hotel. I thought it was great. Moonrise Kingdom was great. I thought he was really actually on a big upswing with his originals for a while. But then this like streak of Grand Budapest, or sorry, and then like the streak of the French Dispatch and Asteroid City. I think we got to get that typewriter away from him. My worst of the year is 65. With Adam Driver. Could have been such a fun movie. I was really looking forward to seeing Adam Driver in something a little bit less like prestige movie, more like big blockbuster movie star status, because I just really love him. And they put him in a movie with a girl who doesn't talk and a bunch of CGI dinosaurs that do virtually nothing. And they just kind of walk around and mumble at each other for what should have been 65 minutes, but was instead nearly 2 hours. And it's just painful. Just painfully bad.
So I'm gonna do my bottom 4. Joyride, I think, is one of the thing is, you guys didn't mention it in any positive, and I think that really just shows ultimately it's nothing. And I just think that this movie that wants to have its we're bridesmaids and also have its we're an emotional core moments. Ultimately, a lot of it is just bridesmaids because it's two friends who were younger and now they're older and now they like don't get along as much. It's the same fucking plot, but it's not as good. So I didn't have a single moment that I enjoyed it. The Marvels, not fucking great. Like,
Paul with the hating women.
I
Here
know,
we
back to
go.
back.
yeah, well, I was moving on from them pretty quick. The Marvels, okay, ultimately I think is one of the worst movies of the year, but I don't blame anyone involved. It should have been the MCU Christmas special. That's just what it should have been. It shouldn't have been a movie. They should have looked at it and been like, hey, the Guardians movie is going to be a Christmas special. Do that. And if it had been an hour long and just a little jokey joke, like fun nonsense thing, great. Everyone would have loved it. The fact that it's in theaters and I had to sit my ass down and plan a whole evening around a Christmas special that I should have put on while I was on my phone, absolutely not. Five Nights at Freddy's, a movie that I will also put in biggest disappointments a little bit, because Five Nights at Freddy's can be scary. It should be scary. It was not scary. And then Asteroid City, The Flash, but the worst thing I have watched this year, and arguably maybe the worst thing I've watched in my entire life, is the documentary Bama Rush.
Oh.
And I don't know if you guys have watched this. Carson has, and he gave it 1 star, so I'm in good company.
I was going to, and then I heard it was bad.
It's a fucking documentary about Alabama Rush. We're expecting some drama, some like tea, but ultimately like a very like calm, normal film about like, 20-somethings and teenagers being crazy. So the director can't get any of that content. So instead, she's like, I have alopecia. And I can make fun of this because my mom has alopecia. I dealt with this, like, being someone who had to have someone who was dealing with that and how she dealt with it and everything. No, this, it's just fucking insane. Because this movie about Bama Rush, 180s, she's not from Alabama. So she didn't go here and like she's talking about her experiences. She's just like, these hot, rich white women, hot blonde white women, are very similar to me, who has alopecia. And I was with my friend Laura, who you both know, but I was like, a shot. I grabbed alcohol and I was like, a shot every time she mentions alopecia. Early on in the film. And both of us were like, absolutely not. We're done. We can't keep doing this. Because she mentions it every like 3-second mark. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. If I was Max, I mean, she'll never make another thing again because it was critically reviled. But like, I would have like sued her because she wasn't able to make the documentary she promised. So all of this money was wasted. Because Bama Rush is awful. It's terrible. Catch people out. She couldn't do anything. She mentioned the machine and then just did nothing. It was wild. One of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
To be fair, we couldn't make the documentary either. We don't know how to get that footage.
Are you gonna talk about being gay then?
If I have to, if I for some reason sign on and agree to make a documentary.
As a snake owner, I am very like
I relate to them. That's the thing. I can't get the footage. Do you really expect her to make the documentary?
No, Michael, having not watched it, you don't understand when she like stops in the middle of the film and takes off her wig and's like, I am bald. And you're like, what just happened?
I'm pretty sure the final shot is on her, like specifically,
Yes.
like looking into the camera, being like, "This was my story."
Yeah, no, it's the most insane thing I've ever watched, and this woman will never work in Hollywood ever again. But also, I'm surprised that David Zaslav, king of the like drop it, wasn't like watching this and was like, "We can't release this," because that is the biggest black eye to Max of the year. I still think of that every time I open up Max. I'm like, I'll never watch another documentary from you because what if it's about a bald woman? What if ultimately this Harvey Milk documentary, what if it's about a bald woman?
so bad it'll
And I
make you
showed it
want
to
to
my
rip
mom
their
too.
hair out.
Yeah, no, but I showed it to my mom who has alopecia, and she was also like very much like, "What the fuck was that?" I was like, "I just want to make sure that it wasn't as insane to you." And she's like, "No, it was crazy." It has a 1.8 on Letterboxd right now. The highest rating of anyone I know is a 2-star.
Well, those are really terrible like films. Let's see if they have any. Oh, Chris Gonzo, Mafia Mama.
Mamma mia.
Chris, why? What are we doing here? I did a drinking game with a friend where we made bingo to Mafia Mama, and can you believe all I needed to win was for them to say the words Mafia Mama, and they never did in the film. That's a missed opportunity if I've ever seen one. For Nicola Grasso, he said Haunted Mansion, which I think is fun. I don't care. Everyone is like hating on that film. The kid is really funny in it. He also said Expendables 4, Fast X, Aggro Drift, and Exorcist Believer.
Um,
Sure.
Exorcist Believer is fine. I will say with Haunted Mansion that felt like one of those movies where I watched and I was like, this was terrible, but I may be too old. Like, have you watched some of the movies you loved as a kid? They're terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's very much that brand. Like, sometimes a movie you thought was good is not. But I feel like that would, like, if it ends up on Disney, it probably is already on Disney
It
Plus,
is on
but
Disney
like,
Plus, yeah.
that's something that like some little kid will fucking love and like have his friends watch who will also like it. So
Did you
That's
did you
why
like
I
Jungle
liked it.
Cruise?
I thought. Oh, go ahead, Carson. Sorry.
Did you like Jungle Cruise, Paul?
no,
Oh, I think both of them are like just like they're not good movies, but they're both like
no,
fun
Jungle
to the
Cruise
point
I
where like
thought was
I enjoy them.
significantly worse. And here's my only reasoning is
He fights a tiger or a jaguar or whatever.
Jungle Cruise doesn't follow the ride enough to where I'm like, oh, I'll allow it.
Haunted Mansion also just has the cast. I really thought that whole cast clicked so well.
Oh yeah.
So well. To where like I genuinely liked it. I mean, I kind of agree with what you're saying. That's kind of crappy, just like on a just production level and everything. But like for the most part, the cast really made that one for me.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I agree. Now let's go from shit talking generalized films to really shit talking individual performances with least favorite performances. This is where we're gonna figure out who we're gonna have beef with at a party in like 3 years. Michael, who do you hate from this year? Who are the performances that you just reject and get away
So
from
I've got
us?
3 boys here. The first one, I've got to contrast Paul a little bit because he was talking about how much he liked Tom Blythe in Hunger Games. To me, that was one of the worst performances of the year, bar none. I got
I
nothing.
do not
Nothing.
disagree until I watched a bunch of clips of the other guy and I was like, oh, this is
And that's
very
true. I do need to go back.
Michael, you need to see the source material.
Right. No,
We
true.
already
Well,
discussed
that's source
this.
material I have seen. But and I do that's true, and I'm sure that's all well and good. But as far as just watching him in this movie, I cannot remember the last time I have seen a movie try to launch like a leading man type, and the dude is just a nothing. This guy's just standing there the whole movie, eyes bugged out, just not a hint of emotion, not a hint. And this guy has to convey such a complex arc of how he goes from someone who is somewhat conflicted about doing these evil things to being completely evil. And he just chooses to portray nothing and to just say all the dialogue in as plain and as flat a tone as possible. Just unbearable to watch for all 6 hours of that film. You wanted to say something, Paul? You wanted to add something?
Oh no, I have a launch actor, so keep going.
Oh, okay. So the second one I have is Joel Kinnaman in Silent Night. This is a movie I was really looking forward to seeing because I love John Woo. Wretched, and one of the main reasons for that is because of Joel Kinnaman. This is a performance where basically the premise of the movie is he was shot in the throat, so it's a revenge movie where he can't talk, and the movie does a really half-assed attempt at being a silent film, which mostly means that he doesn't talk and the other characters will sometimes grumble like it's gonna be okay, like as quickly as they can so that it doesn't count or whatever the fuck. But Joel Kinnaman doesn't talk, And I'm just sitting here going, my guy, this is your chance to really show that you can do something, and you are juiceless. You are just plain as motherfucking paper. Anyway, my number one, and this is someone who, at this point, I want to chase out of town with torches and pitchforks as if he's Frankenstein's monster himself, is Joaquin Phoenix. And I'm really sad to say that because this is someone who was my favorite actor straight up for the longest time. And I still think
Why?
I think he's immensely talented.
For
I think he's
what?
an amazing
He was
character.
so good in like The Village and like
I
that
have the I
era.
don't have the whole list in front of me, but like Walk the Line, Her, and there's
I
like a
have
few
Data.
others there's a few others I'm not the blank I'm blanking on right now. So Joaquin, this guy was really on an unparalleled run of character acting, in my opinion. Her, The Master, You Were Never Really Here, Walk the Line, Don't Worry. We fuck. I was reading the title of the movie because I thought he was great at it, but I forgot how long the fucking title was. Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. I thought he was great in that as well. Uh, and I think I said The Master. Anywho, maybe my favorite actor. And then ever since Joker, this man's brain has fallen out to a degree I cannot describe because he has really taken the clown thing from Joker literally. Because every single performance since Joker, whether you're talking about Napoleon or Beau is Afraid, with the exception of Come On, which I did think he was pretty good but not spectacular in, is just pure, goofy clown work under the guise of drama. But all it really is just screaming and yodeling, fucking yelping, doing that voice for fucking 3 hours, regardless of what the movie is. Beau and Napoleon should not be the same character. It shouldn't be the same personality. But now everyone recognizes him as this, like, sobbing incel. So now that's all he wants to play in any movie that he does with a big director. Beau is Afraid, just a nonsense character, just a nothing character. For a movie that's supposed to be a study of someone, a movie that's supposed to show us why is he afraid? Who gives a fuck? As we all know, like I said before, we get nothing from his performance. It's just that his dad was a cock. And then you get to Napoleon, and this is a real person. This is someone who I'm told has a very complex and dynamic role in history. Not that I know much about all of that. Um, but just seeing him on screen, bringing not an ounce of depth to this guy, and just turning it into this just nonstop string of just like sitcom screaming scenes that are just like built around these just terrible one-liners. And it's just Ridley Scott going like, "Oh, Joaquin's delivery of Destiny has brought me this lamb chop," which is the most fucking like millennial random shark line I've ever fucking heard in a movie like Napoleon, a historical epic. And then Joaquin just fumbles it. He just, at every turn, is proving to just be insanely uninteresting. So that's who I. And you know, he could turn it around. I hear he's working with Todd Haynes. I'd be excited to see what he does. It's definitely something to where like he could do a string of great performances and then I could change my mind again. But his next one is Joker Folie à Deux. So he's about to get mollywopped by Lady Gaga, and that'll be that.
As long as we don't have to sit through another awards camp season with him, I survive, I guess. Paul, what is your least favorite performances?
So, I have a couple, but the number one would be, or number two is Jennifer Kumiyama and Harvey Guillen, both in Wish. When their characters would show up, I was annoyed to be watching the film. Like, legitimately, I think that I don't think either of them are bad performers. I've watched them in their other things, but like just watching them in these particular roles just didn't work at all. I would say Paul Mescal in All of Us Strangers and Sherry Cola in Joyride. Again, that might be, and I'll allow her to give me a second chance because Stephanie Shu, I believe, did actually like do well in her performance. So that's why I'm a little more negative on Sherry Cola. But like overall, that performance was really terrible to me. And like was grating in a way that this character needed to not be. Because I think you needed to really enjoy that character. Outside of that, the entire cast of Asteroid City across the board. But my big one, when you were talking about an actor that you were giving chances to, Anthony Ramos in Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I had allowed him for so long to coast on like maybe it's the wrong role, but this was so blanket, just like it's the easiest role to do, and he was so fucking annoying that I'm done with him as an actor. And I think Hollywood is, but like
he's in Twisters, so he could redeem himself there.
Okay, but like Twisters, the whole point is that a bunch of people are going to die. He'll die in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe
His
so.
screen
watch
time
now.
will
He's
be
going to be the
all-
final one.
You know
The
what?
final one left.
No, but I think that like this was his moment to really show off that he can handle bigger roles. The other ones were musicals or like, you know, weird little small roles, but this was like his big chance, and this he flopped.
I actually liked him
And so,
in that movie.
huh?
I liked him in that Transformers. Not like I wasn't
So
like
funny.
wow. I wasn't like
No,
holy
I was
shit.
like-
but I enjoyed him. I thought
I
he
was like
and
mad
Dominique
that
both
he
did fine,
was
I thought.
around. And I like overall, I didn't like that movie, but I didn't hate it. I just hated him.
Did you like Dominique?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very good.
Well, Dominique Fishback in general is just fantastic and will get really good roles eventually. But
Yeah. I kind of struggled with this question, to be honest, to find answers for it. Taika Waititi for Next Goal Wins. Awful. He's the opening shot of the film, and he plays like a preacher who really likes soccer. He's like a soccer preacher, maybe. He's awful in this. Awkwafina, I'm not a big fan of her vocal performances. I've been on the record saying that. The Little Mermaid, if you've not listened to this yet, close out of this, go onto YouTube and type in the Scuttlebutt
Close out.
song. Well, I think it's important you hear the Scuttlebutt and then you can come back and then we'll actually get 2 views for your listening of this. Just listen to the Scuttlebutt song. I feel like that says everything you need to know about this performance. And then also a little bit more of an inspired one, the AMPTP during the strikes, very annoying force in the film industry. So I was not a fan of that. Let's see what other people had to say.
wait 1 second.
As far as annoying, go for it.
I was expecting you to mention it, so I didn't. Ezra Miller in The Flash.
Wow.
My God.
Can I just say,
Ezra Miller in
I was like,
life, you know,
but
one
like,
of the more annoying.
specifically, I had watched a preview screening, and I was like, this is one of the most annoying performances ever. And then they kept that movie going and then released it. And I was like, that was a mistake. And it was a mistake. It killed the DCEU. Like, just fucking demolished it.
I just want to say really quickly that now that we know that George
I
Clooney,
love Ezra Miller. Is that
now
what you're
that
going
we
to say?
no, now that we know that George Clooney is not coming back, and he said there's not enough drugs in the world for him to come back to play Batman, putting Ezra Miller in the George Clooney Batman universe and ending it there is hysterical. And
It's so
Andy
funny.
Muschietti, I'm sorry I wasn't familiar with your game. That was
But
that
that
is
was
an
not why they did that.
That is
I
an
don't believe it.
unbelievably funny. That is regardless, it is
No, I know. I do
unbelievably
not
funny.
believe it though. I think he's saying that because he got pulled in fucking over Michael Keaton, and it was also a disaster. Um, the only reason I would believe that was a like if he had walked in with a suit with nipple like extenders in the suit, then I would be like, oh, we were making a joke. They were not making a joke. They were planning to have him take over and Michael Keaton could show back up and it was going to be fucking No Way Home of Batman. Pay Christian Bale whatever money, but the film was terrible. So, also, I don't understand why people liked the actress who played Supergirl. That's my other aside. It's like,
I don't really understand people who, not to get into this conversation again, because that was probably the least fun 3 days of my life as a critic, but like, I don't understand looking at The Flash and really thinking anything in it was good. I don't, couldn't tell you what people
no.
see in
And
any
I
part of that
regret not
film.
mentioning it in worst films because it is. But I also watched that a year and a half ago. And no, nearly 2 years ago, the first time I watched it. I watched it in like January of 2 years ago. So I was like, I just feel like I've moved on from that film. But
Sure, we all have that moment where we have to go through and then we move on from the Flash. And even even the DC universe is moving on pretty quickly, it seems. So, fingers crossed, the
woo,
DC,
Aquaman.
whenever they come back in a couple of years, it's the final one. James 1, ending it with a bang, maybe. Chris Gonzo has picked Jennifer Connelly for Bad Behavior, a very inspired pick for most annoying performance, but I'll allow it. And then Nicola Grasso picked Aquafina for both Little Mermaid and Renfield, Tyrese Gibson for Fast
Fair.
X, Ben Platt for Theater Camp, and then both Jamie Lee Curtis and Tiffany Haddish for Haunted Mansion. I get Jamie Lee Curtis. I think Tiffany Haddish was funny, but that's just me.
I liked both those
Um,
performances actually. Um, yeah, no, and Ben Platt. I don't. I get it, but
I didn't
like,
like the movie, but I don't. I think I don't see how it's the most annoying performance of the year. I think like it's not Dear Evan Hansen.
no, it's just I think it's a film that needed to be 20% funnier, but I liked it.
Sure. I mean, I would agree with that statement. I watched that Sundance and I was very like, I get it. It's not quite, howling with laughter, but that's just me. Now let's go to our our favorite scenes of the year. If I can do that line reading, these are the scenes that we all really loved. Paul, I will turn it over to you first. What scenes did you love this year? What were your favorite ones?
Okay, I'm gonna try to choose things that I haven't talked about before. Um, I love the confrontation in Bottoms, where it's basically just Nicholas Galtzine acting, but like where Isabel is asking Jeff whether or not he has been fucking her mom, and he's like trying to get out of that. I think is so fucking good. Um, you know what? I kind of enjoyed. I didn't kind of enjoy. I really enjoyed the one scene where Margot Robbie is talking in Asteroid City. Her one scene, I think, is like very good. I also think that I was trying to think if there was a scene I liked in Barbie. I didn't.
I thought that's what you were going to say when you introed with Margot Robbie. I
Yeah,
was like, wow, progress. You have a
I was
good
really
scene.
trying. I was gonna do both, and then I couldn't do anything.
You like the Margot Robbie joke, didn't you?
Oh, yes, but that's a joke. That's a line in a scene I overall fucking hate. Let's see. Moments in Skinamarink. I know it's not a scene, but like
In a way, the
there
whole
were
movie is a scene.
segments. There were segments of Skinamarink that I was like, "Oh, that's scary." I get it. Now I'm bored again. Um, this year was not great for like scenes overall. I'm trying to think of like ones that I'm going, oh yeah, fuck yeah.
The eyeball scene in Saw X, I'm sure you
I did
enjoyed.
not watch that film.
I'm aware.
Uh, literally would never. Um. Oh, I liked in Wish where they did one song where they set it on a stage and did it as a stage play. It's their like we're getting revenge song against the bad guy. That was the one moment where I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is fun. It feels like we're doing a live action musical but in animated form." That felt kind of fun. I was like, "Oh, I'm digging this." Never does it again. Never did it before, but that particular moment where everyone was getting together was pretty fun. Outside of that, this year was not outside of movies I liked. Didn't have scenes that I really particularly was like, "Oh my god, that was so cool."
I appreciate that you'll spend 10 minutes pondering one, only to end up with a scene from Wish. The only part of which I enjoyed is the absolute confidence they had in those credits to include the constellation of the little guy from Strange World, a film no one enjoyed except for me. I was like, hey, you know what? At least you're sticking to
How
it.
did they not do the fucking
Um,
dog? That's all I
right. No, I
remember
don't
from
know.
Wish.
I don't know. For my favorite scenes, I have a few. I really love the scene in Napoleon. The more the line, which is "You think you're so special because you have boats," whatever the full like exact quote is. I love that. I sent it to Paul. I was sitting there in like a traumatizingly cold theater at 11 a.m. saying I'm going to be quoting that for a year. In Book Club 2, there's this really great joke. They're at this like museum in Rome or whatever, and they come up to a statue that doesn't have an arm, and she just goes like, I don't have an arm. And for some reason it's the funniest thing. It doesn't sound funny, but I promise you it is in the moment. In Elemental, when they finally
It is
embrace,
literally
I was
not called Book
crying.
Club 2, by the way. It's Book
It's Book
Club.
Club the next chapter.
Yes.
I know, I'm aware, I'm a fan.
No,
I
but
just
I
don't
was
think
like
anyone else
trying to
really
look it up and it
cares.
was like it didn't come up.
It doesn't exist. I made it up. I got really high one night and dreamed of
No,
Book
if
Club
you look
2.
it up, if you look up Book Club 2, it says Book Club 2, the Jane Austen Book Club, Killer Book Club, and then Book Club, the next chapter, is the fourth option.
Sure. In Barbie, I really enjoyed the Charlie XCX song Speed Drive, and they have a scene in that movie where they play like half of it, and I was like, oh, I'm sad we're not going to get to hear the second verse, and then they play it again, but from the beginning, and you hear the entire song again. I just feel like that's
Wait,
really
what
for
song is
me.
that?
I'm not going to sing it for you. Look it up. That's not the vibe today. It's fun. It's when they're like being chased around. It's their chase song.
We get 10 seconds
I cried.
because we're reviewing. 1 second. Keep talking.
I cried during Fearless, obviously in the Eras tour, and then the "This Is Your Story" or "This Was Your Story" segment in Guardians 3.
Oh,
There
I
it
like that
is.
song.
That was not 10 seconds. You could have done more. Okay. And then "This Was Your Story" segment in Guardians of the.
There you go.
Spo. Yeah, and then "This Was Your Story." I don't know how I'm gonna edit the last 2 minutes of this together at all, but we'll find a way. The "This Was Your Story" moment in Guardians of the Galaxy, that's the moment where it really like elevated itself, and I was like, this is beautiful. I love this idea that this side character was all about him this entire time. Like, I think that is just like poetry in cinema.
Wait, that's your
So that
favorite
really stuck
scene?
out to me. Probably, yeah.
Oh,
Why?
that's my least favorite scene of the year. You didn't have that in
Okay.
there, but no, it's wild.
Well, I didn't ask. I didn't ask for a reason, so shut up. Michael, what are your favorite scenes?
So, got a couple categories here, I guess. Vehicles. There's a scene in Ferrari that I don't want to give away, but there's a moment that will make you never want to go near a car again. Vice versa, planes in Knock at the Cabin. There is a scene in Knock at the Cabin involving a bunch of planes that is maybe the scariest post 9/11 image I've ever seen in my life.
I thought you were going to say planes and plane, but you
No,
weren't.
like
Wow.
like
Twist.
post 9/11 imagery in cinema. That's one of the most horrifying, I would say. Action set piece wise, John Wick, the Hotline Miami overhead shootout, just revolutionary, just technically brilliant. And it really made me want to see Chad Stahelski break out of John Wick, because he's clearly like going absolutely apeshit trying to make the same shootout engaging for the 50th time. And I love John Wick 4, but that, boy, is that true. And in that moment, he really shot into something, no pun intended, shot into something, a different league as an action director. Um, Godzilla's first attack in Godzilla -1, I think as an audience member, we've become not scared of Godzilla. And that movie just does such a masterful job building up to Godzilla actually being on land. And then he starts tearing shit up and you're like, oh, this guy is a fucking asshole. And then there is 2 musical numbers I loved. One is in Maestro. It's sort of a kind of dance number with these sailors that is in the really kind of Bradley Cooper, both of his movies. The first act where they're establishing the romance as it's like blossoming is the best part of the movie. And in this one, there's this great dance number with these sailors because he's showing her one of his pieces, and they start dancing in the piece on stage. And I just thought it was beautiful. And I also think the Dance the Night Away sequence in Barbie is one of the most like inviting and just like, no pun intended again, I guess, but come along for the ride scenes in a movie where you're just completely pulled into the vibe of that movie and the sheer fun of it all.
I have one more now that you just mentioned that, but All of Us Strangers, where they discuss the like first relationship beat between Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal. And I don't want to describe what happens after, but like that scene is so good because it's so innocuous and it's so meet cute, and you realize how important it is later on in the film. But like that to me is a really great scene that the movie can't really figure out what to do with. But if you just watch that scene and know the rest of the film, I do think it is like a borderline perfect scene because it is so well done and so tragic, but you don't know it's tragic. Genius. I think the rest of the film is kind of a flop, but that particular moment is great.
Sure. Let's go to what everyone else thinks. For best, what is those scenes? Favorite scenes. Chris Gonzo has multiple. He has the kitty cat scene in Marvels, which I agree. Any reference to cats, I will take. Oh no,
No.
no.
Kick it out.
I'm just so over the
Explain.
like Marvel needle drop gag. Like it's
No,
not it's
okay.
not even like that in particular. It's just like it's just once again them being like, oh, well, wouldn't it be funny if this like stupid song was
Okay.
playing? Remember
I'll
this?
Chris, we
I'll
love
tell
you.
Why it's not
Remember you're responding to a fan on this.
Love the fans. The reason I think it's particularly not great is that using cats in a scene with cats, but it's not about Cats the musical, is not galaxy brained comedic thinking. This is like intro to like comedy. This is like,
It's the Marvels.
no, but like that's the thing is why I don't like that film is you could have done any other song, any other musical song. It would have been funnier because it's not fucking Cats. The fact that you chose Cats is you were like, there's a Cats musical. That's the most popular song in Cats musical, I guess. Like, but if Cats musical showed up in a different scene and it was funnier, like the Musical Planet, maybe they sing Memory while they're dancing. You'd have been like fucking in hysterics, and it would have been correct hysterics. Using Cats and then also going Cats is so easy. Don't do that. Come up with something a
Too
little
much
clever.
pussy. Too much pussy on screen. Hopefully you like Chris's other picks. Chris also picked the rocket freeing the raccoons in Guardians 3
Yes,
and the
great
aliens
scene,
stealing
actually.
the thingy in and the aliens stealing the thingy in Asteroid City.
The thingy.
Sure.
Yeah, also good.
The thingy.
I do want to go back to Rocket.
The Marvels and why it was bad.
No, Rocket. I do think that's a great scene because there is a part of you as a viewer who goes, is he not gonna fucking save the other animals? He said raccoons. But I understand he
It's
means
the same
I know
scene.
he means all the other animals. No, they are separate. You don't know that he saved the other animals. I think the true beautiful moment is that he saves all the other animals, including the monsters that you saw later or earlier. But I understand that that's supposed to be an overall scene. But like that moment where you're like, he has fucking saved his own kind after his friends, and I was like so pissed. And then all of them come out and was like, I don't like this movie. That fucking works. That's great.
Sure. Nicola Grasso, hopefully, we like his a little bit more, maybe. Father Amor riding a Lambretta in Pope's Exorcist. I mean, I agree. It's an iconic moment of cinema. The You Weren't Meant for Humans' Eyes sequence in La Chimera. The final goodbye in Past Lives. You have the Haunting Hall celebration in Oppenheimer. Chase
Yes.
through Rome in Mission Impossible. Massacre through a peephole in Evil Dead Rise. And the club sequence in John Wick 4. I think pretty good scenes all around.
Mm-hmm. No, and by the way, I didn't dislike the previous scenes. I know you. I liked them. I just there's one that I had particular problems with, but outside of that,
just say I'm sorry to Chris. Just apologize.
I'm sorry.
No, he doesn't. I assume he doesn't care. If you're listening to the show, you need to be ready for Paul Price to bully you. With that, let's end this by talking about overall, just a quick conversation. 2023 in cinema. Did we enjoy this year? What are our overall takes? I will say for me, I don't think it was that good. I think the first part of the year was really strong. Then you get to summer where you have Barbenheimer, which ruled. And then it's just been a couple good releases here and there. For me, it's a year with 10, let's say, really great films. And the rest were just kind of there. I don't feel like we missed a lot going on this new ClapperCast schedule where we only review one movie every other week. There's not a lot here I'm begging to talk about that we didn't get a chance to.
No, nothing. There is not one movie that I am dying to talk about, and that's really upsetting.
So I have an optimistic take, to be honest. So I think that maybe while I agree that the actual releases were uneven, I think this was the best year for movie going and movie culture in a very long time. And I think that it has partially to do with the death of the superhero movie. The cape shit is on its way out at last. And because of that, people are finally having some fucking interests and actually going after movies that are about something. And I'm not even saying that in a pretentious Oppenheimer's about the perils of nuclear war. Even if it's just I loved Theater Camp. It's a comedy about people. And I just found that when I was talking with people about movies this year, they would say they loved something like Bottoms or D&D or John Wick, Killers of the Flower Moon. Something different. Something that shows and displays some personality. And I think Barbenheimer had so much to do with that, of course. We sort of shrug our shoulders at it now and go oh, well, whatever. But at the time, I think that really opened people's hearts to going to see movies and experiencing them again in a communal way. And I do think that the spirit of Barbenheimer has very much stuck around in how people are viewing movies now. And I think that's amazing. And I think, sure, the output itself, there was definitely a little bit to be desired. I agree. But I think that as far as just being in the world of movies, this is the most I've enjoyed it in some time. And I think it's only leaning more that way, and I'm very excited to see the superhero candle just next year. I think it's over. Deadpool 3, I think, is going to be people's like, this is embarrassing at this point.
I'm
I know you love your X-Men, babe.
I'm so positive that Deadpool 3 will do the exact opposite, but I do enjoy your thought process. I will agree with you a little bit. I do think this was the year that everyone separated their opinions, but it was also the year that I personally just didn't watch things I didn't want to watch.
But that's good, I think. That's good, I think.
Yeah, no, but and I'll point most prominently to Napoleon, where it was a movie that I had tickets to, I could have gone to, I didn't want to go to. I was in the theater. Like, legitimately in the theater, about to walk in. And I was like, I don't want to see this. So I told my friend, I was like, I'm going home. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, we'd already grabbed dinner. It wasn't like I just ditched and he had invited me separate from that. But like, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't need to. And this year has been that for me a lot of times. There will be a lot of movies, like I'll have to catch up with like the best pictures or the best actors or whatever. But there are so many movies. And ultimately, like if you're someone who really keeps up with all this, there's so many movies that you think are going to matter and then ultimately don't show up on the day. And you're like, oh, why did I watch that movie I didn't want to watch? Don't. Like, I don't care if you're like 18 or 45. Like, just don't watch the movies that you don't care about until they like matter for the conversations.
Yeah. So many of them just fade into the ether anyway, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing.
Yeah, you're just saying nothing.
I'm watching so many movies. It's funny that Carson left for this, but like we watched so many movies, and ultimately, like 95% of the movies that we would just like binge watch were like, this doesn't matter, but we would enjoy the stupid ones. Yeah. You know, the Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, like any of those kind of movies where like, oh, we had a great time. The Fires, occasionally there's an Oppenheimer, but for the most part, it's like you don't have to watch every big movie or what's assumed to be big. And I think that was my ultimate realization with this year.
You did well in that regard, I would say. You stuck to it.
Yeah, no, I have like 6 movies I want to watch versus like 40 movies I never wanted to.
I think you're going to pull the Napoleon thing with Poor Things. I can't lie. Or you'll walk out.
I think I'm just going to wait till somebody will get a screener.
I think you're going to hate Poor Things more than anything. I really, truly do.
I assume.
Okay, we're ending this with our question of the week, which is going to be our most anticipated 2024 movie. I'll go quickly because it's a pretty easy answer. Same as last year, I'm excited for everyone to see Challengers. Luca Guadagnino, I stan. I assume it's going to be really good. The trailer was incredible. Paul, what's your pick?
Carson, restart and don't pick my movie because you... No, choose a different one.
How could I pick anything else?
Pick a different movie.
Okay, fine. Michael, you go. I'll look. Okay.
So I've got a few. The first and easily most would be Mickey 17. Robert Pattinson and Bong Joon-ho doing sci-fi. Robert Pattinson playing multiple roles. It's an instant 5 stars for me, pretty much. David Zaslav, please don't throw that movie in the trash. Give us the real release date. I'm begging. Number 2 would be Terrifier 3. Any longtime listeners of me, you already know I'm here for Art the Clown. And Terrifier 3 doing a Christmas movie, incredible. I'm there for it. I think it's going to be even better than Terrifier 2. And then Nosferatu. by Robert Eggers. Dying to see that. I do think it will either be his best or his worst movie, but I can't wait to see which it is. And then Yorgos Lanthimos' Kind of Kindness. I know a little bit about what that is about, and I can't say, so I'm going to start over. Yorgos Lanthimos' Kind of Kindness. Poor Things wasn't 100% my cup of tea, but I think that Emma Stone and him are an immortal combo, and that they're going to deliver many, many, many masterpieces. So I look forward to Kind of Kindness. And also Jesse Plemons and Yorgos Lanthimos is just lethal.
Okay, and my truth is that it's challengers for me, but I apparently cannot pick this for reasons that I'll talk about in 4 months. Truly, I look through this list. There's nothing else I'm excited for other than, I guess, Kinds of Kindness, because I really dug Poor Things. 2024, I didn't really look at this
Was
list
it
going
not
into
called
it.
And at
It
some
is
point?
looking like,
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is Kind of Kindness?
It's they just changed the name recently.
Okay.
Yeah, 2024 looking like a rough year in films. I'm sure Mickey 17 or whatever will be fine, but
That's
I
what
don't
they should
know.
call
I'm
it.
not excited for this
Mickey
list.
17 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whichever one he is.
Paul, since I was bullied out of my truth, my honest answer and my answer from last year, which I put a year-long claim on this as my answer. Paul, what is your answer? Impress me.
Okay, so I'm gonna do challengers because it's mine.
Fuck
I
off.
own that.
Fuck off.
Because I haven't seen it. Well,
I haven't either.
And I will say that no one should be excited about Dune 2 for some reason. Do not be excited about Dune 2 for some reason. But my third will be, again, I have some insider, but I think Deadpool 3 will be fun. Because Deadpool 3 does feel like the first time where Disney's going, let's play with the toy box that we have when we bought Fox. And I think that'll be really great for people. Will it be a fantastic movie? No. But will it be what you wanted from Doctor Strange? Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be that bad movie that people wanted. The one that's just
but
hey, here's this person, and here's
Wait, which movie are you talking about?
Oh, the early 2000s. The early 2000s. Oh, the early 2000s.
Shut up.
Sorry.
We've never gotten it. We just constantly sit there and we're like, oh, it'd be really cool if they did this. And then they never do. And they give us one character and you're like, that was fun. Or they give us a couple Spider-Man and we're like, yeah, I guess that was fun. But no, we haven't gotten the entirety of you like a bunch of shit? Go. And I think that'll be really fun. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of very funny things that they can do with it. I think it could be, I don't think it'll be a great film, but I think I will sit there a little drunk and have the best time of my life. So, and is Paddington 3 next year?
Yes. Well, in the
yeah.
UK it is. Technically for us, it's 2025.
We'll see it somehow. And Paddington 3.
Paddington, isn't it? Paddington in Peru or something
Paddington
like that?
Peru.
Hell yeah. See, I'm a real fan. Paul King. Or he actually isn't even directing it. Never
It's
mind.
some AD or something on Paddington, so I think it's not going to be much of a style.
Yeah, we fucking... you know what? That's why I really fucking hate Wonka. Is, you're probably a little too young for this, Carson. But, X-Men 1, X-Men 2, Bryan Singer. Then he fucking abandoned it for the third one, which is the finale, and made a movie that sucked, Superman Returns. And I have hated that man since, regardless of all the other shit. But I'm talking about just as a director. I've hated that man since because you abandoned your project that you did the first two and then didn't care for the third one. And then Paul King did it again. First two, you have the third one. Just finish the series. If you do the first one and not the second one, fine. But if you do the first and the second, finish the third. It's a trilogy.
Sure. I will say, I think actually, I guess I am excited for the new Lion King, the Mufasa film, just because Barry
that could
Jenkins
be
is
fun.
directing it. I think that the Jordan Peele film, I don't know anything about it, but I assume
that ain't coming out.
Well, I didn't like no.
People are trying to
could be good.
People are trying to do like a horror Barbenheimer with that already, and I'm like, can we? What if like there was one person cast in it before we just act like it's coming out next year? There's no way on there is no way on God's green earth that movie comes out next year. 0% chance. Hasn't even
Joker. Yeah, cut to, and in 1 year we'll be saying it's our favorite film of the year.
If it comes out,
Joker 2, I am conflicted about because I hate Joker 1 and everything about it, but Gaga will be in it, so I will stan it. Venom 3, and there's like 3 films in that universe, as the leading pro person on Morbius, and as someone who's enjoyed every single one of that series, I'm excited to go back into that universe. And isn't Shyamalan also having a new film?
Trap. I think it films next year. It hasn't filmed yet. So I think that'll probably be early 25. That'll probably be when Knock at the Cabin came out this year.
Sure. So yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see what happens. We'll be back next year to discuss all those films, I guess is what I will say. Well, I think that's going to do it for this year in recap. Our second year doing this in a row, longer than even the first time, but that's okay. We'll be back next year, hopefully, to discuss all this. And of course, listen to ClapperCast as we go through what we like and dislike throughout the year. Let's find where we can find you guys on social media. Paul, where can we find you?
At Price Like Tag on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Michael?
King of Burbank, TikTok, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and YouTube.
You can find me on and YouTube. Sorry for interrupting. You can find me on Twitter at pp_movie. Wait, you have a YouTube?
I'm starting it. I just I'm posting some of like my shorter videos to it.
Wow, okay. I was like, I missed this for a year. Sorry. You can find me on Twitter at BP_movie reviews, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky, just at Carson Tamar. Thank you so much for supporting us this year. It's been 1 year since we kind of did this video relaunch of the podcast. Thank you both for joining me on some of these episodes. Thank you anyone at home who sat through like 2 hours of talking about Napoleon. I'm grateful for this. I love what the podcast is becoming, and I can't wait for another great year of content. So with that, we'll see you next year. Goodbye.